In the past, we've established the fact that when we were created, God did so with a plan and a purpose. Everybody agree with that? You weren't random, you weren't by chance, you weren't an accident. I don't care what anybody's told you. You weren't even your parents' plan, per se. They may have planned you, but they didn't have a plan for you. Y'all getting what I'm saying? They may have desired to have children, but they didn't plan out your life for you. But God, when He breathed, before He breathed life into your nostrils, He had a plan for you. Before He established the earth, before He hung the galaxies, before He fashioned it all together, He had a plan for your life. Can you buy into that? Can you grab a hold of that? He planned for your life way back then. How humbling is that? That God, you know what the angels say about us? You know what they say? What is man? What is man? That God considers them, that God thinks of them? And then let's look at ourselves and say, who am I that God would consider me? But He does. He does. That's a humbling thought, that God, in all of His majesty and all of His power, planned your life, knew everything that you were going to do, every mistake you'd ever make, knew it, created you anyway, because He had a plan. So the plan that God created you He created you for the purpose of fulfilling that plan that He desired. That plan is your full potential. That's the fullest, that's 100% of the potential that's there for you, that's in you. Problem is, most don't ever reach that potential. Very few reach that potential. But that's the potential, is the plan of God. The fullness of the plan of God is your potential. But when God looks at you, He sees your potential. He doesn't necessarily see where you're at. He knows where you're at, but what He sees when He looks at you is the plan. Is the fulfillment of the plan that He created you for. When He speaks to you, He speaks to your potential. He speaks to the fulfillment of what He created you to be. Let's look at Judges 6:11 and 12. Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth tree, which was at Ophrah, which belonged to Joash, the Abiezrite, while his son Gideon threshed wheat in the winepress in order to hide from the Midianites. Now what was he doing? Why was he threshing wheat? What was he really doing? He was threshing wheat to kill time, but what was he really doing? What was he there for?
Hiding.
He was hiding. Hiding from the Midianites. What would we call that? We'd call that a coward. We'd call it a chicken. Being afraid. Is that what we call it? Let's look and see what God called it. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, "The Lord is with you, you mighty man of valor." So what was God speaking to right there? Was He speaking to where Gideon was? Hiding in a wine press? Or in a wine press, threshing wheat. Who is He speaking to? A mighty man of valor. He was speaking to the potential that he knew was in Gideon. And he was trying to speak that potential forth. Because what happens when God speaks? When God speaks, what happens? Whatever He says, right? The problem is, we have a say-so in it. Because He's given us free will. Anything in nature, everything in nature doesn't have free will. The only thing with free will is man, right? So when God speaks to anything in nature, what He says happens instantly. It is. But when He speaks it to man, if man will line up with what He says, it comes to pass. But if man chooses not to, it won't. But what God was doing was saying who He created Gideon to be. You mighty man of valor. Gideon couldn't see that. He was seeing these Midianites are going to kill me, right? Mm-hmm. So what did God say about you? What does God call you? He calls you what he created you to be. He calls you, when he speaks to you, he speaks to the fulfillment of the vision that he had when he created you. So God was speaking to who he created Gideon to be. He was speaking to his potential. Genesis 25. We're going to look at 29 through 34. Genesis 25. Now Jacob cooked a stew, and Esau came in from the field, and he was weary. And Esau said to Jacob, "Please feed me with the same red stew, for I am weary." Therefore his brother, the name was called Edom. But Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright as of this day." And Esau said, "Look, I'm about to die. So what is this birthright to me?" Then Jacob said, "Swear to me as of this day." So he swore to him, and he sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and stew of lentils. Then he ate, drank, and arose, and went out. Thus Esau despised his birthright. The birthright was a double portion of the inheritance of his father. A double portion. So he's going to get twice as much of the inheritance of his father, who was the son of Abraham, who was probably the richest man to ever walk on the face of the earth. You see what I'm saying? Now this guy's fixing to get a double portion of the inheritance. That was his birthright. He just sold it for a cup of soup. So at Isaac's death, Esau was going to get twice as much inheritance as his brother. Twice the inheritance that his brothers would get. So to satisfy his flesh, he settled for 1/3 of the inheritance that was rightly his. See where I'm going, Esau? Don't Esau yourself. Esau was like so many people today, only interested in what feels good at the moment. If it feels good, do it. His response reminds me of what I hear people say all the time. "I'm so hungry, I'm about to die." Isn't that what he said? I'm about to die. What good is the birthright to me? I'm fixing to die here. You ever hear anybody say that? You ever say it? I have. I'm about to starve to death. Hello. Am I really? You can look at me and tell I'm not about to starve to death. I've built up a supply. I'm a survivor. I've just built my little stash, you know. But Esau, in that moment, when we're in that moment, when we are real hungry, it may feel like it. It may feel like we're about to die. Because our flesh is screaming, "Feed me, feed me, feed me." Right? But in reality, it's not as bad as it seems. It's not as bad as it feels. So Esau sold his birthright. He sold his future for a bowl of soup. His potential was diminished. So the flesh could be satisfied for only a little while. How long does a bowl of soup last? I like soup, but I could eat it literally all day and I'm not going to get full. So this guy sold his future for something that was going to last how long? This is a big scrapping guy. I mean, you read about Esau, covered in hair, burly, a hunter, a man of the field, stayed out, he killed animals, That's who this guy was. He was the big burly brother. Woolly. He was the burly one. How long's a bowl of soup going to last this guy? It ain't going to be there long. Now, he just sold his beauty. He traded his future for a bowl of soup. And we say, that's so stupid. But do we do it often? Do we do it all the time? Think about it. Think about it. I want us to be mindful of our birthright. What is our birthright? Our potential. The potential that God created us for is our birthright. Now, as we've already stated, when God created you, He did it with a plan and a purpose. The fullness of this plan is your full potential, thus being your birthright. When we act out in the flesh and do what only comes natural, God is faithful to forgive us when we repent. Isn't He? When we act out in the flesh, God's faithful to forgive us when we repent. But guess what? We may have lost our potential. We act out in the flesh and we do what comes so natural, God will forgive us, but our potential was decreased. And we may never get that back. Our relationship with God was saved and restored, but potential may be lost forever. Y'all see what I'm saying? When I'm talking about don't Esau yourself. Doing what the flesh wants, it's not always something that we do. Sometimes it's something that we don't do. Doing what the flesh, I'm going to say that again because that's important. Doing what the flesh wants isn't always something that we do. Sometimes it's something that we don't do or fail to do. Sometimes it's those divine appointments that we walk right past because we're too busy, because we're too shy, or whatever excuse that we come up with, and potential is lost. Y'all know what I'm talking about? How many of you have ran into somebody and you met them and you made it was a divine appointment and you walked away? Now somebody that person that you ran into poured something into your future. I can remember countless times where going somewhere that for what I thought was my plans, and when God had a plan, I run into somebody, meet them for the first time, and they offer me a job, or they invite me to minister at their church, or whatever it is. But they sow into my future. We've all had those situations, right? That we can look back and say, I remember the day that I ran into so-and-so, my life was changed. We all have them. But how many have we walked right past? When God put them right there. God set up the meeting. And because we were focused on where we thought we should be doing, we walked right past. And the whole time God was saying, wait. I brought you two here together for a purpose. I wanted to make a connection right here. But Lord, I'm so busy, I got to go. Or I can't go talk to that person. Lord, I don't know them. Who am I to go talk to them? And we walk right past our birthright. And we sell it for a bowl of soup. We sell it for what makes the flesh feel good. So our flesh feels good for a little short while, and potential could be lost forever. Y'all with me? So we think about Esau, that being so foolish, but how often do we do the same thing? Esau did what felt right to his flesh, and as a result, lost his full potential. He was still blessed. He still had a relationship with his father. He still asked his father for blessing, and he got it. But it was never what it was supposed to be. The flesh drives us to give it what it wants. Then when it's been satisfied, we're left feeling discouraged, disappointed, and empty. When you're hungry, when you're real hungry and you walk into a restaurant, do you have a problem paying $30 for a steak? No. Man, I've looked at menus before and went, whoa, where did I walk into? But you know what? When you're hungry, you're going to pay it. Then as soon as you take that nice body steak and your belly's full, you go, man, I should have never done this. I sure wasted a whole lot of money, and it's gone so quick. Am I the only one who feels that way? I don't know, maybe I'm just a tightwad or cheapskate, whatever you want to call it. But man, paying a bunch of money, that's one of the things that I struggle with, paying a lot of money for food, because I recognize that it's gone so quickly. So we can say that, I think you're all with me, that we've all been in a place where we were so hungry, didn't mind paying an excessive amount of money for a meal, but then when it was gone, we felt like, maybe I should have done that. That money may have been more wisely spent somewhere else. Well, how about this? How about in a moment of rage when somebody makes you so angry that we say something As soon as we say it and we calm down and we gather our thoughts, we think, I wish I'd have never said that. I wish I'd have never said that. And you know what? We can go back and we can apologize and we can make it right. But what about the potential that was lost? What about the person that you just told off that God brought you together with and God orchestrated that meeting that was a doorway to your future? But because your flesh rose up and you told them how you felt, that potential was lost forever. Or in my mind, even worse, what if you were the doorway to their future? And instead of blessing them the way God wanted you to, you told them how you really felt. Man, that's one thing about feelings. They change like the wind. You can't go by your feelings. Don't trust your feelings. Don't trust your feelings. I have a strange feeling. I can't talk to them. I have a strange feeling about them. Well, if it's just a feeling, you better get over it. They make me feel weird. Well, if it's just a feeling, you better get over it. Now, if it's the Spirit of God that's inside of you, telling you, watch, stay away from them, you better listen to it. But if it's just a feeling, you better stay away from it. But in a moment of rage, when we spout out how we feel, our future potential could be damaged forever. Now we're watching, you ever watch Undercover Boss? You ever watch that show? I love that show. But we were watching that last night, and there was a Popeyes. Any of you see that? But one of the guys on there, he was, man, this was the best little worker that any business would be honored to have this guy. He was, man, he cleaned the trash cans and just scrub them. And this lady was working with him. He was showing her the right way to clean the trash can, the windows, and he was wiping the walls and the floors. And she was asking, she said, well, this isn't the soap that I've seen in other Popeyes, right? He said, oh, no, ma'am, I don't buy that kind because I don't like it. So I buy the soap for this restaurant out of my own pocket. You know, and just going on and on and on. Well, come to find out, he starts sharing his life story. And he said during Hurricane, they were in New Orleans. He said during Hurricane Katrina, he said, I lost everything I own. He said, and I hitchhiked to evacuate. And he said, a pastor picked me up. And he said, this man brought me to his home and let me live with him. And he said, he took care of me. He took care of all of my needs for 2 years until I could go back to work, until I could start reestablishing myself. He said, this man took care of me for 2 years. He said, now, he said, I'm the cook at the church, and we have a mission, and we feed the homeless every day. And he invited his boss that he didn't know. He thought it was a coworker, a new employee. He invited him to go into the soup kitchen where he cooked, and they fed all these people. And you know, when it was all done, Popeyes Corporation donated $10,000 to that pastor for his soup kitchen. But I said, that's it. What if that pastor wouldn't have stopped and picked up that hitchhiker?
That's right.
Potential lost. What if that man who's now working for Popeyes wouldn't have done his job so diligently? Potential lost. What if he wouldn't have shared what he was doing at his church with the CEO of the company? Potential lost. You see, at any breakdown in there, potential could have been lost. What if that pastor would have said, okay, the storm's on, go back home. It's over with, go back home. Find a job, go back to work. What if he wouldn't have taken care of that man for 2 years? Potential lost. You see? We have to be listening to the Spirit of God. In a moment that the flesh is weak and the flesh will scream out, feed me, feed me, feed me. And it can all be gone. Future, gone. The plan of God, gone. Potential, gone. Salvation intact, but future, gone. Let's look at Esau's potential. On top of the 2/3 of the inheritance of his rich daddy, he was also going to receive a blessing. Genesis 27, 28 and 29. Therefore may God give you, this is the blessing, therefore may God give you of the dew of heaven, of the fatness of the earth, and of plenty of grain and wine. Let the people serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brethren. Let your mother's son bow down to you. Cursed is everyone who curses you. Blessed is everyone who blesses you. This is Esau's potential. On top of 2/3 of his daddy's stuff, now he gets all that. Now the nations bow down before you. Now your brothers serve you. Now whatever you touch is blessed. Anybody that rises up against you is cursed. That's his potential. That was his potential. Now, let's see what satisfying the flesh for an hour or so got him, as long as a cup of soup lasts. Genesis 27:38-40. And Esau said to his father, have you only one blessing, my father? Bless me, me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and he wept. And Isaac his father answered and said to him, behold, your dwelling shall be of the fatness of the land, and the dew of heaven from above. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. And it shall come to pass, when you become restless, you shall break the yoke from your neck. Esau gave in to the desires of the flesh, and this is what his potential had fallen to. He was now going to serve rather than be served. He was going to have plenty, but he'd have to fight for it every day of his life. For a cup of soup. But Esau gave up, gave in to the desires of the flesh, and this is what his potential had fallen to. Israel, through disobedience, lost the temple to their enemies twice. And you know what? If you look back at the dimensions, every time the temple was rebuilt, it was rebuilt smaller. Potential lost. Potential was lost through disobedience. Remember that we're citizens of the kingdom. Right? In a kingdom, who owns everything? The king does, right? So the king is the only one. Since he owns it all, he's the only one who gets an opinion. Isn't he? Usually, we can't keep our mouths shut because we have an opinion and we want to make it known. Am I right? That's what usually gets me in trouble because I'm very opinionated. And my opinions are right. So I believe. That's why it's my opinion. If I didn't feel it was right, I'd have a different opinion. And man, sometimes somebody will say something and my opinion just wants to come out so bad. And I'm getting better at it. Right? The voice of agreement? You say that in faith?
Yes.
Or you say that in honesty?
Yes.
I am getting better at it. But still, it's like my opinion wants to come out so bad. But I have an opinion. I'm not supposed to have one. This word is the only opinion I should have. God's the only one who gets an opinion. If my opinion doesn't line up with his word, it's wrong. Bottom line. Anybody's opinion who don't line up with that word, you're wrong. And that's what usually gets me in trouble. When I hear somebody having an opinion and their opinion don't line up with the word, that's when I really want to say something. Right? The king is the only one that gets an opinion. And it's usually when we can't keep our mouths shut is because we want to make our opinion known. But we have to remember, I don't have a right to an opinion. Or if we're too shy to do or to say what God said for us to do or say, it's because we have an opinion of ourselves. Did y'all hear me? Sometimes it's our opinion of ourselves that gets in our way. I can't do that, Lord, because, am I right? Yes. I can't do that because of how I see myself. That is what? An opinion, right? What we think of ourselves, how we see ourselves, is only our opinion. But is it our potential? What does God see? He sees our potential. He speaks to our potential. So if God leads you to do something, don't say, I can't because of whatever. Because now you're just voicing your opinion of yourself. Did you get that? I think that's for all of us. He gave me this little quote right here. It's very powerful, and I want you to get it. We can't shut up because of our opinion of others. And we can't speak up because of our opinion of ourselves. Did you get that? We can't shut up because of our opinion of others. We have an opinion of them, and we have to let it be known. But we can't speak up because of our opinion of ourselves. I've seen some people that have it backwards. I've seen some people that can't shut up because of their opinion of themselves. But it's usually the other way around. We have to remember that we don't get an opinion. Our only response to the King should be, yes, sir. That's the only response we should have to God. Yes, sir. Never, no, God, I can't because. Always just, yes, sir. We start, when God speaks to us, and I'm as guilty as anybody, I start looking to see if that's something I can do. He already knows I can do it, or he would have never told me. You know, what did the disciples do when they said, all these people are hungry? He said, you feed them. What did they do? Looked at the money bag first, but we don't have enough money. Yeah, I didn't say nothing about buying it. I said feed them. But we don't have enough fish and bread. That's the first thing we all do, right? That's what comes natural. God says do it, and you start looking at your resources. Right. I can't because, and whether it's physical, whether it's spiritual resource, whether it's mental capacity, whether it's whatever we come up with, that's what we look to. So who are we looking to as our source? If we're going to reach our full potential, there's only one way to do it. It's the same way that Jesus did. Can we all agree that Jesus reached his full potential?
Yes.
How did he do it? You want to see what he did? He said, I only do what I see my Father do. I only say what I hear my Father say. Right. If you can only do what God leads you to do, and you can only say what God leads you to say, you'll reach your full potential. When we give up our opinion is when we reach our full potential. When we give up our opinion of others, of ourselves, of situations, when we lose our opinion and we grab a hold of his, we can reach that full potential. Amen?